Hello and welcome to Science Fiction Fanatic, the podcast that helps you find new, emerging, and undiscovered science fiction podcast content. I'm Greg, the host and curator of Science Fiction Fanatic. If you are a science fiction fanatic, click that subscribe button now. This is a podcast feature episode. If you like the creator, check out the episode notes for links to subscribe. Today's episode is from Podcast Assemble. Podcast Assemble is where you come for your regular doses of geeky entertainment, talking about movies, TV shows, comics, video games, and everything in between. Don't forget, you can send me a tweet at IndieDropIn with all the sci-fi fandom things you love, and I will find podcasts to feature right here on this show. All right, let's get this show started.
Begin.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, show where you come for your regular geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's DL.
Welcome, bienvenue.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. I've been doing my Duolingo. I'm on a 5-day streak.
Oh, damn.
Things are looking up.
Wait, French?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't know why I thought it was anything else.
German. Can you imagine? My part would be like, fuck you, dude. Like, I start speaking German to her. Like, like, she's like, what does that mean? Oh, I love you. Well,
Ich liebe dich.
she's like, fucking dude.
Motherfucker.
What do I have to do? Anyway, because my partner speaks French. Sorry.
Of course. And it would be a real nice thing for him at some point over the last 10 years.
10? I feel like you can only count the last two. It's like when you're because you're like with someone for like 2 years, it's like, okay, like I should probably start learning the language now. We're invested 2 years in. I'm not gonna learn like
waste 2
a
years.
year because then it's like, you know, a bit early. But no.
I mean, I started learning Australian as soon as I started dating my partner. So, mate, the lingo's hard. Trust me, they say some dumbass shit.
Anyway,
Yeah, man, what have you been up to?
I just clicked out of my note, so now I'm trying to find it again.
Well, let me start then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me
You
start
lead
this
the
week
way.
because I've got a really fantastic one to start with. I actually guested on another podcast this week. And shout out to our boys, Super Bracket Bros. Those guys are super awesome. They're far more detailed than we are. It's almost like they know how to do a podcast.
Super Bracket Boys.
Super Bracket Bros. Give them a look up, man. Give them a listen. I really recommend any of you guys go out and do it. What they do is they do a bracket in the style of the States. So you know how college basketball has a big bracket and all the teams play whatever they do. I don't know how it works.
March Madness, Thomas.
March Madness. But what it is essentially they pick two fictional characters and they make them fight against each other as if they've seen each other from afar or whatever it is. That a portal opens up, they both step out, and then we just had to talk about what would happen if this happened.
Mortal Kombat.
It's fantastic. So we did an episode on John Wick versus Worf from Star Trek. Now, do you know anything about Worf?
I don't, but
Me neither. It was hilarious.
Who did you have to defend?
Well, we didn't. So what we did was we basically just talked about what we knew about the characters, how what drew us to the different franchises, and then a bit about their fighting styles and stuff. Which luckily those guys
Worf
knew
is
more
the
about.
brown guy?
Yeah, he's the Klingon guy. But so we prefaced them both, and then we talked about who we thought would win. I'd love to know who you think would win in that. So it's brains versus brawn, essentially. It's nimble versus bulk.
I don't know anything about this guy's powers. He seems very smart. Like he's got a big brain that's literally in his forehead coming out. I don't know.
It sounds like his physiology just means that he's a bit of a bit like Captain America being sort of steroided up, essentially.
Oh.
Just super bulk, pretty strong, but probably slower than John Wick. But they both have their weapons.
Does John Wick have guns?
He does.
Is this guy like made of like rhino skin? Otherwise, I think
I'm just gonna throw it out there. You guys should go ahead and listen because it was a really fun episode. And if you want to hear me being at my absolute sarcastic best, this is where you're gonna find it. So,
listen and see.
Yeah, check it out. I think you can find it on most podcast streaming sites. But that was one of the things I've been up to this week. What have you been up to?
I have been doing more of the same a bit. I guess I've gotten through the first episode of Moon Knight, which I thought was fucking good. The first episode,
It's cool, right?
It was really good, and I'm excited to watch more.
Nice.
And like it's good that we have like one good actor in America. All the British ones are taking over, but it's good to see one American guy do a pretty good British accent. Oh, come on.
It's all right.
You said it was good the first time.
No, I said it's better than Benedict Cumberbatch's American accent.
It's pretty good. And
that's a different conversation.
I actually think it's quite good.
Okay.
And it's like unfair because like you guys can be like, oh, they're doing American accents. American accents easy.
I think it's just
very easy.
No, it's really. I think it's just the fact. I actually quite don't mind it. It's just like he's like a
nerdy British guy. He's doing it really well.
It's like like on steroids. It's like an accent on steroids. It's like way over the top. Like no one actually sounds like.
Yes, you do.
No, we don't.
Yes, let me speak from experience. You guys do.
you know what's really funny actually. I don't mean to pipe on about that pod, but the two guys who I did the podcast with are both from I think Colorado. Okay. So they are very American, and one of my buddies was listening away. He's like, "You sound so posh." I was like, "That's just because I'm with these two American dudes. Yeah. Like it's nothing to do with it."
My point being though, like I'm sure like some of these guys don't do great American accents, but everyone just gives them a pass because they're British. Like it's a lot harder. You guys all sound the same. It's a lot harder for an American to come in and be like, do a British accent for a British person to be like, "Oh yes, that's exactly right." Like,
that's pretty good.
That was like Aussie.
That was awful.
Yeah. But point being, like, I'm glad we have one good actor.
So you like the Moon Knight series so far? You like
I've only seen one, and I like the concept, and like there's a lot going on, and it just seems very like heady and psychological, thrillery in a way.
As you go through as well, like you find the cast is really diverse. It's really cool. Like they've brought in a lot of interesting elements. The director's really just does some really interesting stuff with it. The music's real fun. Like it's worth keeping up with. I think I've seen 3. I think it's Wednesday, right? It's when we peek behind the curtain. It's Wednesday when we're recording. And there's one out tonight, but I've seen the first 3, so I'm keen to know where it goes.
Same. I'll probably watch one tonight before bed. I've watched more of Castlevania. I'm still digging.
You've been chugging through that.
Yeah, I'm on episode 1 of season 4.
Okay.
I mean, it is a bit weird and like BDSM-y like constantly.
Oh, weird. So it's really taking it up a notch.
I guess that's like an anime thing. Like it seems like a lot of anime delves into weird, like a bit of sexual stuff. Like every one I've watched that hasn't been like a kid's thing. Right. Has like weird sexual undertones.
I'm just gonna go over character now. Like I know nothing about anime.
I don't either.
This is my new character. I literally know nothing about anime.
Everything.
You have to explain it in graphic detail to me so that I understand what's happening.
All I'm saying is when I've watched, I'm always like, wow, that seems a little more sexual than I was expecting this to be. Like, I've only watched like 3, and they're probably not actually anime. But
so anime is just graphic sex stuff, right? Is that what it is?
That's not what I said. I am like 2 for 2, I guess.
Yeah, the minute you are.
And then I've also like randomly was just on. I was like tired of Netflix and started on what is it? Amazon's Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime.
And saw something with old mate. Get everything in the air.
Oh, just Brolin.
Yeah, Brolin had
everything with guns in the air.
They are animals.
Need a compilation of you doing accents.
I love Josh Brolin, and I love doing his voice. He is in a new show called Outer Range.
Okay.
On Netflix, and it's like about this guy.
On Amazon.
Amazon. Sorry. And it's about this guy who like has a mom and pop farm who's like competing against these commercial like cattle ranches, and his is all sustainable. And he's like kind of losing that battle, obviously, because it's America, and he's not getting any love for being sustainable kind of thing.
Big milk taking over.
Yep, and I'm not really spoiling much because it kind of happens in the first episode. But in the middle of his land, he kind of finds this. He finds this like hole.
Oh,
and it's like a hole. It literally is like a hole in reality. And he's like, "What the fuck?" And it's in the middle of Wyoming, and it's like follows him like as he. I'll leave it at that. I've only seen 2 episodes, and so far I'm very engaged.
So it gets a bit spacey wacy.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi kind of weirdy thing. I don't want to say more, but it's so far good acting. I
haven't seen a good sci-fi in a while, so.
Yeah, I can test run.
Does he ever shout, "Get everything with guns in the air"? Because that's going to get me in.
He does like have a scene where he's like doing this monologue to God. And, like he's like praying at the family dinner table, and then it turns into this like hate speech about God. And it was pretty well acted.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I liked it.
Is that because of this whole
well, there's a bunch of stuff about like that it happened, like it's this thing just throws you in. Like a bunch of stuff happens to his family that I don't want to spoil right away. So there's all this family drama happening as he's hiding this thing that he doesn't know how to, like, you know, he's like this grounded farmer cattle guy, and there's this fucking totally mind-bending thing that he knows about that no one else does, and he's like hiding it. And so he's dealing with these huge like family issues that you could build a drama on its own. while this is happening in the background. So it's him dealing with like his reality being like totally distorted.
So what I'm imagining is it's Yellowstone meets Stargate.
I don't know what Stargate is. After all that,
imagine like it's like hopping dimensions, right? So they get these two pillars and they step through. So they're just hopping around trying to find their way home.
Kind of, but not really.
No.
I would say it's more like Arrival in vibe.
Arrival.
That's like high praise though. Like we'll see. It's only 2 episodes in, but like so far the tone is much more Arrival-y than I don't know whatever you just said.
I just trying to find what we were talking about. I just I couldn't obviously remember Stargate, so I just Googled Space Pillars TV show.
Did it work?
It came back with a show called The Pillars on Earth. It's got so many good actors in it. It's got like Ian McShane. It's got Eddie Redmayne.
Pillars of the Earth,
but it looks like 1970s.
Pillars of the Earth. Pillars of the Earth is a great book.
Oh, really?
It's probably an adaptation.
This looks awful.
Well, read the book.
Okay.
Read, kids. And I finally gotten to the point of Deathloop where I think I can make my run to break the loop.
Oh, it's
so
going to happen.
I'm getting to the end of that. I've done all the leads. I've done all the investigating. I think I know where I'm at.
Well, hold off.
Yeah.
And you can give us like a full spoiler-free version next week. How does that sound?
Sure. Yeah.
I can't wait. I've been up to some pretty cool things this week, actually.
What up?
Off your recommendation, I skipped a couple of seasons in the middle, but have started Archer season 11. Because
okay,
we talked about it a few weeks back, and I was bemoaning the fact that Archer had gone from this sort of like enemy of the week vibe, where they just did the same jokes, to being this weird thing where I think he was in a coma.
There was a couple really bad seasons
dotting around.
I didn't mind the weird coma ones for the most part. There was a couple bad ones though.
I just skipped them and I've come to the new stuff, and I like it. It's really interesting. Okay. I like the change in it that, you know, I think you mentioned it, that it brings back all the old tropes, but puts new spins on them, because now like Cyril's a badass, for example, who was obviously the office nerd before, whereas now he's like the most competent of the agents, and Lana's not interested anymore. His mother's even like a bit like trying to hold him out of the action. I really like the new spin in it, but at the same time, Archer is still pretty awesome.
And everybody just like hates, like realizes how much better life was when Archer was in a coma.
It's great. I really like it.
It's good.
Good recommendation.
I think that, it's back to the old formula with a twist. What I would say is you should for sure watch the Alien one in a coma, because that one was actually pretty good.
Alien one.
It's like the season where they're like in space and it's like basically pretending to be a sci-fi.
Oh, I think I watched about half it, but I kind of fell away. That was one of the original ones.
Yeah.
And the last thing I watched this week was, I think I mentioned this to you the other day, but I got really excited when I watched it. It's a bloody good movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called
Bloody Good, mate.
Yeah, oh my God. The English accent coming back out.
Bloody good.
It's called Brightburn. You heard of it?
I've heard of it. Yeah, it's the superhero gone bad movie.
Essentially, yeah. So what would happen if Superman landed on Earth, as he does in comics, TV, film, etc., but the spaceship he is on essentially turns him bad and makes him into this infiltrate and destroy type organism that looks like us but really isn't. And it's goddamn amazing, man. It's like it flips after about half an hour into this sort of like thriller. I'm just gonna go with it. It's a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Halfway through, when he starts understanding his powers and getting used to them, the gore is unbelievably graphic. There's like a scene where this filament light smashes above like a lady, shard of glass in the eye, and has to pull it out.
Oh God!
Oh my God! It is probably
watch that. Ugh.
Oh, it's awful, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I mean, honestly, it's hands covering eyes at some points. You know, like it's crazy. Yeah. But I really love the concept, and they kind of make hints at potentially other, like when she looks into the night that the meteor came down with said child in it. They make hints that there was 6 other, which would mean, 7. That's the usual number for the Justice League. So I love the idea that this could be part of a bigger universe, and I'd like to see more of that.
What about like humanity? They just wouldn't stand a chance.
Not a chance.
When you think about it, actually, and like this might be a hot take.
Spicy takes by Dre.
Brightburn 2019, right?
Yep.
What was the Boys was like probably even like the same year, maybe 2019.
Yeah.
Original Justice League movie. Earlier than that, 2017, 2018. This whole anti-bad guy, what happens if Superman equivalent goes bad and weren't good people. I think that it's fair to say Zack Snyder was ahead of his time. Had he been able to release the movie as intended in the date that it was intended to be, it would have been very novel. It would have been very groundbreaking, and it wouldn't seem like a rehash of these other two things that have already happened, right? Because that was supposed to come out in like 2017, 2018.
Segueing beautifully into Have You Heard this week?
Yes.
Have You Heard is the part of the show where we talk about some news from the week that I like the look of, and Dre usually goes, yeah, I heard that because you probably sent it to me. Have you heard this week that since Warner Brothers was acquired by Discovery, now it's Warner Discovery, it's apparently been reported that the new parents are looking to shake the kids up a little bit. You know, they're trying to give them a bit more direction, a bit more focus in life. And apparently they're actively looking for their, quotation marks, Kevin Feige to steer the ship. Which is kind of what we've been saying for a long time. Is it not just? But also, they want to revive characters who have apparently been languishing for way too long. These are all still in quotation marks, like Superman. So characters that have been underused, like basically they want to get their cash cows bringing the money in again, right? They want.
But like, dude, first of all, surely Kevin Feige's like, no, I got enough on my plate.
No, not literally Kevin Feige, but
they want to have their
version
own.
of Kevin Feige.
I thought literally it was Kevin.
No,
I was like, he would not do that.
Why would he do that?
Yeah. But agreed, but also disagreed. It's like, people liked Zack Snyder's interpretation.
They did.
And like, you go and rehash all this, like, I agree it's the right plan, but if you do it right away, it's just going to be obnoxious.
And that just opens the question, like,
Batman come out. Like,
they've got so much in development right now. You think about all the projects. I mean, there's Shazam, there's Aquaman 2, possibly a new contender to be a new Aquaman 2018. There's so much. There's the new Flash movie, which... Interestingly, did you hear about the news? Ezra Miller's now apparently been, he's now apparently been put in prison in Hawaii because he went crazy.
Of what he did.
No, a new thing. He apparently went crazy again. So I hope he gets help soon. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that movie, which has now been shelved for the moment, was essentially setting up like a reboot of the franchise. So Flashpoint, what it's based off of, rebooted a lot of DC comics for like one of their most recent reshuffles and reshakes. So you could even imagine a scenario where they release that movie as his last hurrah, and then at the end of it, it's just a whole new cast of characters.
What's going on?
But then they'd have to get rid of a bunch of movies, like Shazam, for example. That's coming out soon.
I mean, Shazam could kind of stand on its own, though. It could be like a sub thing.
But that's what I'm saying. If they want someone who's a Kevin Feige, who's going to give direction to the comics, give direction to and connect the TV and movie universes, they can't just have this random movies coming out. Like, that's not how that works.
I think that, like, I do think that Shazam, I don't know, like, I've never connected Shazam to like other DC properties the way that, like, I'm sure the comic books do have it connected, but like traditionally I think like Batman, Superman, Justice League, I don't really connect that with Shazam. Do you? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I mean, he's not necessarily a founding member of the Justice League, but he's fought alongside them previously. He's fought Superman like a bunch of times. So it's a case of like, I think what they were aiming for was they were moving away from trying to connect everything immediately and doing what MCU did in the first place, which is release a bunch of good movies and then bring them together later on.
Little hintings.
With little hintings as well.
But, you know, like, you don't have to redo everything, right? You could redo just Superman.
I mean...
Although, like, why would you? He was good.
He was good at it.
But I guess it's over now.
This is the conversation, right? How do you work in these people? And then, like, whoever's going to take this on is going to have to get so many hashtag restore the Snyderverses in their timeline forever, because that's all it is now. So whenever Warner Brothers executive releases anything...
It kind of does feel like they should do that, though. I'm not going to lie. Like, they have got all the actors.
Oh my god, have you come full circle on this?
I have, dude. The Snyder Cut was better than the other shit.
It was.
Like, and I just kind of feel like he actually is the only way to make, like, Superman interesting is to explore, at least, you know, dip your toes in the water of, like, if he turned bad, or if he got more involved than he should have, or, like, you know, like, and it just, if they go back to like classic boring Superman, I'm just not going to be interested.
Well, I'd love to see a competent Superman movie first, like one that explores.
That's what I'm saying. That's the only one that exists, I think, in like the modern film.
Chris Reeves ones are the best ones. I mean, I'd love to see a hopeful, just a hopeful Superman for once. Anything,
but he's too strong to just have it be hopeful. Like, there needs to be a foil to him that's like interesting and has a
nuclear man. Let's bring him back.
No. But you know what I mean? There needs to be like some kind of character who like has an arc. Like, Superman is just like good and invincible and like
Superman has a lot of interesting comics that explore more about his personality. So, like, for example...
I have yet to see them in film.
well, that's the point.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen a competent Superman movie ever. Like, one of my favorites is, and I've forgotten the name of it now, however, the whole story is essentially this girl who's on a ledge on a building and she's about to commit suicide. And instead of Superman just swooping in and saving her when she jumps, it's a case of he lands next to her and he spends the entire comic book standing, talking, and understanding her, helping her understand that it's not all terrible. She doesn't have, instead of him just saving the day,
mate,
he takes the time to actually.
Do you think they're gonna make a movie?
No, absolutely.
Fucking him standing on the side of the building. Come on, let's deal in realisms here.
No, but that's what I'm saying to you. Like, they could do this. This is like he's a
pull
three-dimensional character. You know what I mean?
Three-dimensional.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yeah.
Did you hear this week that IGN is reporting that the Ghost of Tsushima movie adaptation
every video
finally got a writer?
What the fuck?
This is been on the cards for a little while.
Do they have a good storyline in that? I mean, it's a beautiful
meant
game.
to be amazing. Yeah, it's meant to be phenomenal. And so they've named a dude called Takeshi Dosha, who I've never heard of, but apparently wrote some pretty cool sci-fi romances. One was called Only, and he's going to be leading the project. Now, this is a game I haven't touched yet. Because I came back from the UK, I was away for a little while. I came back, and my first port of call was to play this goddamn game that I've had, and then Elden Ring came out.
Instead, you bought the fucking biggest game ever
possible. Yeah. It's terrible because I reckon I saw a great meme today that was like the stack of games that I've been meaning to play staring at me from behind, like the ones that are like
you always buy new ones.
The fruit and veg in the back of the fridge type thing. It's literally that.
I have the same with books as well. I'm always like buying 2 books when I've read one.
Oh man!
So I'm just constantly getting more behind.
What do you think about that? Would you watch Ghost of Tsushima adaptation?
I don't know anything about it, but sure.
Me neither.
I'd rather play the game, to be frank. I'd rather use my time to do that. But
okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm ever going to get time to do this right.
I've got so many good ones, like all the Horizons, basically the games that. What is the studio that made Deathloop? Like, apparently they've got like 3 or 4 great games that are just really, really creative that I've never played.
I think they even tested it with. I was watching a YouTube video on it. They tested a similar formula with I think a Mass Effect game previously. So, I mean, you might as well take a look into that.
Mass Effect. I forgot they remade that. I gotta get that. Like, there's.
I thought you had that.
I know. I have probably the original. I want to get the.
All right. Well, speaking of video games. I'll give you a couple more pieces of news before we shimmy on. That's a word.
Soiree.
Before we shimmy on.
Soiree.
Do you know who Amy Hennig is?
That sounds like a very familiar name.
It should be,
but I don't actually know.
Amy Hennig is the creator of the Uncharted series and has done a lot of very interesting, cool things in video games. Now, when EA acquired the licensing for Star Wars, she was in the process of creating a video game for Star Wars in the style of an Uncharted game with her old company that I've now forgotten the name of. So it was booted, essentially. They were a long way into production and the whole thing got booted, just completely ripped out from the ground.
They basically said, do not make this anymore.
They literally ripped it out.
What a waste.
Yeah, well, exactly. However, it's just been announced in the last couple of days that she and her new studio, Skydance New Media, they're officially making a new Star Wars game. I'm so excited about it.
So is it going to be this, like, they're going to use a lot of what?
That's what I want to ask you, because what I'd love to see is, personally, now I'm a bit sick of every video game Star Wars being, you got a lightsaber and you got to hit a guy like 15 times. I'd love it. So she made Uncharted. Why not do something with these characters that are getting massive, like the Mandalorian, Boba Fett? Put them in a cool situation where you've got to use these different mechanics to get around, where it's not just slashing at people. Have both.
Have a path of the Jedi, a path of the bounty hunter.
This would be fantastic. Yeah. You can pick and choose.
Yeah,
would you play a Star Wars game like that after you've finished all the rest of them?
I still want to play that other one. What's that? The Force. What's that one with the Auburn Jedi?
The Fallen Order. Yeah,
I still want to play
that had a few of the. Cause I played a little bit of that. That had some of the mechanics, like Uncharted style mechanics in it. So I wonder if they're going to push on from there, because they've also announced that they're doing a second one to that too. Man, I'd love a Star Wars game that's competent and interesting and fun and has different stuff going on.
Yes.
Do you have any news, Dre?
Look, man, I did not have much other than seeing the Thor Love and Thunder trailer.
And the Keep It In news this week.
Yeah.
The Thor Love and trailer?
Thor Love and trailer. Thor Love and trailer.
Trailer Love and Thunder.
Yeah, trailer and Love and Thor. Ooh, that's kind of kinky.
Oh, yeah. The Thor Love and trailer came out today.
It did. And
what do you think?
I was like not gonna watch it because I was like, oh, I don't want to be a little nerd, but I did because it's my only piece of news, so I had to come.
You have to bring one a week,
and it was just enough to get me excited.
And it
seems like very
like
much. He didn't give away anything really.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see like that one scene where it's like obviously he's getting pulled back in from his chill lifestyle when he sees that.
He just gets in.
Yeah.
Then they pull him back in.
Just when I thought I was out there.
Every week I'm going to make that same joke.
So, that is true. Like you can tell that like this dead gods or whatever.
Yeah.
Be what pulls him back. But you know, I'm down to see Thor be a bit hippie and you know, like.
Did you like the training montage?
Himself
he's doing CrossFit. He's got the chains.
I didn't want them to just yada over how he got rid of the beer belly, so I'm glad they did that.
I wonder if it's going to be full 80s style, like Rocky, like running on the beach. For sure.
Look at did you see his hair?
Amazing. He's got like a little braid.
Yeah, for sure it is.
I guess the pièce de résistance of this is that at the very end of the trailer, for that 1 second, we finally see Jane Foster as Thor. So that's Natalie Portman's returning character, who is big. It's a big deal in the comic books. You know, she becomes Thor at one point, but in the comics, there's an interesting wrinkle to it, and I don't think this is a spoiler because I don't think they're going to go with it this way.
They never really do.
But in the comics, Jane Foster, the human, has cancer, and she's really sick. But whenever she picks up Thor,
whatever his name is,
she picks up Mjolnir. It cures her essentially for that time, but then when she puts it down, it comes right back at her. So it's this dichotomy between the two states. Like she can't be Thor forever. That's just not who she is. But also, if she's not Thor, she'd be dying. So it's an interesting one. I wonder if they'll
subvert it somehow. I'm sure.
But also, Mjolnir's back. Did you see that? Did you notice that? It's all cracked up and stuff.
I didn't notice it was cracked up.
It looks all cracked up, like it wasn't
in the comics. Is it like a big deal when he gets this axe? Is that like, or is that something they just kind of invented?
I think just over time he's had different things.
Yeah.
Like so, one of the axes he had, which has I think it's called Stormbreaker in this, which is actually the axe of a different character who's Beige Ray Bill, who's essentially a horseman thing.
Oh, cool.
Long story. Not sure he's ever going to come up in the MCU anytime soon.
Yeah.
But he was worthy
That's
of having
French
the
for horse.
hammer, essentially. So Odin made him a Stormbreaker, which is his like axe thing.
Yes.
So they've pulled and tweaked elements from different things. And
Horseman.
Mjolnir has been broken many a times. Like, for example, there was a bit of the comic book when a very fine shard got knocked off Mjolnir, fell to the ground. A frog touched it and became Throg. So he was literally a
butterfly
frog
effect. Yeah,
exactly. Like
fucking Mjolnir piece chips off. Like universes are created, right?
Look, we'd love to know what you guys think of any of this news. I know social media guy Lockie has posted definitely about Thor: Love and Thunder and a bunch of these other ones on our social media. Hit us up at Podcast Assemble on Instagram.
Please do.
Let us know anything we've missed, anything you've heard. We've got a couple of bits at the end of the show which we've had from friends of the show. In fact, a couple of friends of the show have sent us this one. Friend of the show Luke sent us it before I even knew it happened. Bloody hell, Luke, what are you playing at? But yeah, hit us up, let us know any news we haven't heard. Do you want to preface our main topic, DL?
I do. So we have, every now and again we do these episodes, right? Where
anthologies, baby, we're back.
I don't even know, you call it an anthology, I guess. It's not really the same as like some of the other anthologies, but it's like kind of reoccurring. Where it's like, hey, a movie that we should have seen, or an older movie that we, maybe have seen and don't remember. We just need to re-see and recover.
I'm honestly trying to remember
this?
The last one. No, I haven't. I've never seen this.
So
before.
I had seen probably 80% of it.
It just needs to one of us not have seen it.
Yeah. So it's one of us has to have not seen it. It's like, hey, well, we need to watch this.
I can't remember what our other one was. We've done one of these episodes before.
It was
Heat. Heat.
Yes, it was Heat.
Oh my gosh, of course.
We may have done that, but that was like a good movie. I'm not saying that this isn't, but we did Total Recall, the original.
We did.
Which
the 1990 spectacular.
Yeah, like cult classic, I think. There's a lot of people that there's a lot of like scenes that were burned into my memory from this movie.
I think it just seeps into a lot of media,
Well, there's that, but I remember like there were scenes where I saw it and I was just so young that it was like burned in.
Yeah. I mean, in 99,
like some of them were
been born.
Well, yeah, some of it was like graphic stuff, and then other of it was like, wow, Sharon Stone is a babe stuff.
Yeah,
and then
as graphic as Castlevania.
Castlevania is like drawings, so I can kind of.
I still don't know anything about it.
I didn't watch Castlevania when I was a child. It's like,
look, before we get into it, Do you want to give me a stupid plot summary of Total Recall in 1999?
Yes. Idiot, probably infertile, and very confused man terraforms Mars before it was cool.
I'm a big fan of that. The infertile bit is a lovely little
Do you get it?
that
You
I
get
didn't
it.
actually put in my
There's a
notes.
lot of that. There's
More than necessary.
Yeah, like what? Poor bloke.
Significantly. All right, mine is 90s movie disguises itself as an 80s action flick, asking questions about reality and mortality in a confusingly deep yet versatile romp.
Confusingly deep.
Yes. It is.
Versatile is a strong word, but
It's got many facets to it. I'm not going to lie.
Multifaceted, but versatile implies
Multifaceted.
like in a good way. I would say.
Well, I liked it. Anyway, look, before we get into that, why don't you tell me then what you think the IMDb score is for this?
I actually think that this is one of those movies where, you have like people that really like it as a cult classic for kind of how goofy it is, I think, at times. And then you also have people that like really expect big think things from this director, because like he's done pretty like good satire,
Awesome stuff.
Like and they've been like pure satire plays. Where I think this is that, but not as obvious. And I think that some of those people would be disappointed. So I'm going to give it a middling score, 7.3.
It's 7.5.
Good.
I like it though. All right,
middling.
I like where your head's at. Why don't you hit me with what you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is?
82.
82. You were so close. You're getting better at this, man.
80.
I'm not. I feel like you must be cheating on this.
I'm not. This is.
All right. Finally, the
Real
game
deal.
breaker as always. What do you think the Metacritic score?
Well,
is?
this will be lower. It'll be like 68.
It's 57. So
Yeah.
I feel like that. I feel like that's harsh.
Like if you judge this as an actual movie, not as like
As what?
As like a piece of film history, I guess, because it is kind of like it's very like, you're right. It's a lot of it is seeped into mainstream media because of like
It's true.
its goofiness or like just the point in time that it was made.
I feel like it
what
created
what
a lot
it
of the
represents.
tropes.
Yeah. I don't know if it created a lot of tropes. There's a couple things where I was like, okay, this is ahead of its time.
All right, well, we'll get into that because there's a few really cool bits of trivia as we're going through. Yeah, so this, as I mentioned, was Paul Verhoeven, Starship Troopers, RoboCop, Basic Instinct. He did some fantastic movies that all flipped expectations.
Yeah.
RoboCop, man, like absolute timeless classic. That's one we're going to have to do for one of our many
again, one that
anthologies.
I've seen like random scenes from, but I don't think I ever.
Oh my God, well, we're
finished.
going to do that at some point. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good one. It obviously has Arnold Schwarzenegger. You mentioned Sharon Stone, Rachel Tickerton.
I had a really hard time writing
Rachel Tickerton.
Yes, his second
who is
girl.
Melina.
Tickerton.
And there's a bunch of people in this, but
Benny?
Benny's great.
I thought it was a very inspired
Mel Johnson
performance by
Jr..
Benny. Yeah.
Yeah. One I wanted to call out was Michael Ironside, who plays Richter, who's one of the bad guys. You will know him because he did the voiceover for Darkseid in the Snyder Cut.
Did
He did. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Like he's acting, voice acting, everything. But it's a pretty inspired cast, and I like what they were doing with it. Now, before we move on to talking more about this film, let's talk goofy IMDb pictures.
we're going straight there.
My favorite part of the show. Well, first and foremost, we have the current MVP, who you well know is Adam Darlington, who plays NY Homeless Man with his
NY
terrible
Homeless
Snapchat selfie.
Yeah, post dick pic selfie.
What a guy.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Inspiring.
I'm not entirely sure what else to say about him at this point, but the opponent from this movie for Goofy IMDb pick. Now, we say this not as regularly as we probably should, but this isn't about making fun of what people look like. It's just about saying, why on earth is that your IMDb picture?
I'm
can do
going
better.
to be less politically correct. Sometimes it is about
Sometimes
making
it is.
fun of what people look
All
like.
right. Not on this occasion. This time, the opponent is Kamala Lopez, who just plays additional voices. And it's
She's at a Trump rally. Yeah, that's interesting.
Can you explain it?
She's sorry, yeah, I forget that the viewers. She's in a leather listeners, I should say. The leather jacket, pointing at the camera like with two fingers actually.
2-finger point. Yeah, finger guns.
Many rings and American flag
Kanye West style?
aviators. Yeah, like Kanye West style aviators with American flags imprinted on each lens.
It is just such a weird image.
Yeah.
She must be at some sort of rally. Like that's
yeah, it looks like that. Or like a really, really like white 4th of July party. It's like a very white background.
What do you reckon? Who's got the goofy IMDb pick?
I think our mate still takes the cake, and we may have to retire him because
Well, he's only won 3 in a row.
Okay.
So we said 5 before.
Okay,
So
5 is the number.
I can find one better.
I mean,
than that.
do you think that he deserves to win? I do. I mean, she's goofy as hell, but
Well, what we'll do is we will
that
put
IMDb picture, it needs to be on a Predator list. Like, it's fucking his picture is so bad.
What we'll do is we'll put it on our Instagram at Podcast Assemble, and we will let you guys vote.
Let the
You
crowd
let us know
decide.
who you think, and if you outvote Dre this week, we will come at you with something different.
So be it.
How does that sound? So be it. All right,
Sounds good.
we're not going to do spoilers, non-spoilers this week. We're just going to talk about this movie because it's from 1990.
And-
like, we tried too hard with that.
And honest to God, I don't think there was any major spoiler. There was maybe one major twist.
I think the major overarching like narrative of the film and the ways you can view it is a spoiler, but you can't talk about the
But it's not
movie
really-
without
but it's
talking
not really-
about that.
Yeah, that for sure. And it's not really a spoiler because it's only a spoiler because the director revealed something.
Mm.
If you'd have said nothing, then you'd have been still guessing.
It's true. We'll talk to him about the plot of the movie. What
So,
goes down?
Yeah, like in a world where Mars is being colonized for resources and is at the brink of kind of a civil war between kind of the lower class, those that have little.
Funny that, isn't it?
The mutants, actually, which kind of just get thrown
The
in.
rich holding down the poor.
Yeah.
Where have I heard that before?
Arnold Schwarzenegger, or as we know him, Quaid.
Doug Quaid.
Yeah, Doug Quaid. Is a man with a great job and a beautiful wife. But
Was a
despite all
construction
this-
worker.
yeah, but he's a big dude. It fits his
He's a big
brawny
dude.
lifestyle.
Fair
Look, I mean, he's got a beautiful wife, nice apartment. He's got a job. I'll say that.
He does.
But despite all this, he's nagged by dreams of a past life on Mars with a different person, a different female who he seems to be in love with, and really can't shake the feeling, right? And in an effort to satisfy this craving for a life on the red planet, he tries a virtual memory injection. Think about it like a virtual tourism, right? You take a dream, you take a nap, and you dream like a video game, right? This whole storyline where
Inception, but what's Inception is a video game of a
yeah,
nice vacation.
basically Inception, right? For you modern listeners. And in doing so,
As opposed to non-modern listeners.
yeah, I guess like people would say like our parents would be like, no, it's not Inception, it's Total Recall. That was my
Maybe.
point. It might be
I like where your head's
yeah.
at.
And in the process of doing this, he awakens something deep in his brain. Is he stuck in a permanent recreational induced spicosis?
Spicosis. I love that.
I'm coining that one. Or is it?
Did you write that down? Is that literally written down?
Literally there.
Oh my god, that is the best thing you've ever done.
that's a low point.
Yeah, I know. Oh, dude.
Or is he really a spy for Martian rebels? I guess you got to watch the movie to find out.
You
or
really have to find out.
because we'll be talking about it next.
But there's like I say, it's multifaceted. There
It
are
is.
twists within the narrative. There are turns and there's interesting tidbits that you don't pick up on unless you really look for them. I love this, man. It was super kitsch, bit campy at times. Like
A bit.
Mate,
The prosthetics were like the campiest shit I've ever seen.
it had this 80s quality to it. That was, I mean, it's clear.
did.
It's
Yeah, it
clearly like it was clearly made like late 80s.
It's like a relic of the 80s.
It's the
despite
last
its release
throes.
date. Yeah.
But it's like I say, it's beautifully kitsch. But like in terms of it, like why I say kitsch, because some of the technology is very quaint and almost like antiquated, but somehow it doesn't take you out the same way Alien doesn't take you out of it in the movie. Like that's way out of date and that monitor would never happen like in real 2050 or whatever it's set in. But in this setting, like you kind of get away with it.
I'm holding my tongue because I was taken out many times.
Were you? All right.
But like I like an Alien. I just think was like way more. It didn't like Aliens prosthetics didn't take me out at all.
No,
So-
no, but like I'm talking about like the technology rather than the Aliens prosthetics.
How
Like,
do you mean like the surrounding?
the monitors around. So like if you watch
Okay.
Aliens, like it's a proper grimy setting, and like
Yeah.
all the monitors they work on as astronauts are like 15 inches by 15 inches.
Yeah,
And
I
like
get that.
it's like dot code like rolling down the
Yeah,
screen.
that stuff wasn't like too. It was more just like the crazy prosthetics and some of the plot
Well,
points.
we'll
but
get
yeah.
to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. This is a real fun movie. Like I love what you were talking about. It's a type of movie that leaves you with more questions than answers, right? I feel like that's how I came out of it. I went in being like, never seen this before. Like, let's see what happens. And by the end of it, I was like, my head is exploding with questions. Like, I was asking my partner, like, what's this mean? What's this mean? And
she
like,
watch it with you?
Yeah. She loves that. She loves that type of stuff. It's great.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So essentially, he goes into this dream memory vacation type thing and wakes up halfway through the procedure with his brain scrambled, thinking he's an actual secret agent. Now, what do you think of his performance in this? Because this is like peak Arnie.
I find Arnold Schwarzenegger in these like minus Terminator.
Yeah.
Hard to watch.
Really?
I do. I enjoy him.
Even in Twins.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Even Kindergarten Cop.
I don't know if I've seen that one either.
Even in Last Action Hero.
I definitely have seen that one, but
in Jingle, I can do this all night. Even Jingle All the Way.
Keep going. I guess I don't know, man. Like it's just like he is literally speaking broken English at times. And I'm not judging.
I think that's just bad writing. I don't think that's him. He speaks perfect English in this. I think it's when he's making.
There's times where his accent, like he stumbles over the line.
When they're like trying to hold him down the chair, and he's like,
well, like that stuff. I'm like, are these overdubs?
Like, no, I don't think so.
I think that's literally how he sounds. Like, I literally wrote down. I don't know what was it. Like, I think it was literally just. Do you think this is the noise he really makes? Like, surely that's edited. Like, because it's so absurd.
Look, I wrote down that I thought for quite a unique's the wrong word. Quite an interestingly nuanced material. I feel like he did quite a good job with it. Like, it's nuanced in terms of like all of the things you can read into it, but you can only read into it that way if he played this in a certain way.
He plays it like, and maybe this is purposeful and I'm not giving him enough credit, but like this like almost like dumb dude.
Yeah.
Like he just plays it like this, like
he's had his memories wiped.
Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like earnestly dumb.
Yeah, he is.
There's another word for it that I can't really place, but like it kind of bugged me. I don't know what about it was, but like, look, he's fine, and it was entertaining because it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like he's passionate and he's genuine, and like it's hard to hate him. It's just like it's hard for me to say he's this amazing actor.
Sharon Stone was good in this.
Sharon Stone was like the only legitimately like unique and well done performance.
She played like a really good dual personality.
Yeah, it was like an interesting kind of role in acting, and she was only in it. Like I kind of wished, and maybe we can save that for when we go through like best and worst, but I kind of wish they slow played the discovery of it all. It kind of happened so fast.
Yeah, it's true.
And I would have liked it to be a little bit more like subtle. Like in a modern take of this movie, I think they draw that out. They make it creepier. They make it like weirder. Like, what is that? Like him second guess. It's almost like the Truman Show.
Yeah, okay.
But like a slower build of him realizing like that he actually does have this alternative life, and it culminates in this like Total Recall event, right? But
yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, essentially the plot is he goes into the recall, like Dre says, into the recall facilities to have this vacation memory thing. I don't really get it, but whatever it is. And halfway through, he busts out and he starts believing he is a secret agent. Now, this is where there's a very clear line in the sand whereby you're not sure which part you're seeing is reality and which part is dream. And he believes he's a secret agent, and he has to go on this mission. He goes back to Mars, back in quotation marks to Mars, and he has to fight off the bad guys and help the La Resistance and all this stuff, right? So it's like there is a clear delineation between him being a construction worker and him being the spy, right?
Yes.
And it's real interesting that's the point of the movie, that the director says as soon as his eyes close, everything is a dream after that.
See, that's kind of dumb. I prefer like if they didn't even do the dream sequence, and it was like he goes to Total Recall kind of in the beginning, and then it's this suspenseful thing after where it subtly creeps, and eventually he has more and more dreams, and then he like he can't just, like, you don't know, he doesn't know, but he goes for it anyway. But anyway, I
think that's a different movie. I love the idea that
I don't think it's that different. I think it's just better executed.
It leaves it so ambiguous, right? So the point of it is that you think he's woken up before they've actually started the procedure. So like the point is the movie
that's not ambiguous,
tricks you.
Though. Yeah, that's what my point is.
It is though, because
it's like very much saying one thing and then the director's just saying another. In my opinion, it feels cheaper.
Well, if we remove let's remove the director out of the conversation for the moment because he said that later in time. But like the way the movie sets it up is, I genuinely just thought like I didn't know that was what the point was, but I was like, oh, he's just woken up and his brain's been fried and he's gonna go on this mission
and took down like the amount of tranquilizer that an elephant would. Like she's like
and didn't die.
I'm pretty sure like one of those sufficed earlier. Why does he have 10? Like
because he's angry.
London.
But I thought, like I say, like I thought, considering that he's supposed to be this brain scrambled guy, like he does well with the nuance of the materials.
He has this airy eye look that like gives off the brain scrambled vibe. If that was purposeful, then Arnie, I give you some credit.
My favorite bit I think about this movie is, and we talked a little bit about this on the Super Smash Bros podcast, is the 80s action. I talked about, do you like action in 80s movies and TV shows?
Not really.
Because neither do I.
Yeah, it's terrible.
In this scenario,
it's terrible, dude.
And with Arnie as like the key focal point of it, it's just so interesting because even when they pit him up against like 5 guys, he will just crush them immediately. But they've got to add some sort of suspense to the movie, so like they've got to get a good lick in, and then he's got to do the 2-handed punch overhead like in Star Trek. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like built in a way to make you feel like these middle-aged, balding, fat guys could beat up Arnold Schwarzenegger when they absolutely couldn't. You know?
Well, the other part is like just the choreography. We've talked about this before. I forget what movie it was, but the choreography for the fight, you've just gotten so much better over the years. Like it's crazy. It's like, who did they have running this shindig before?
I feel like there's a line in the sand around the time of The Matrix where things actually start to get
I think that's a great point. Like that's like the first one that I remember being like, whoa.
Yeah.
Or like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I think it was probably after that.
I think we can exclude a lot of Asians
because they
knew what they were doing.
That's my point. Like, it's like, who was doing this? They just got like the janitor to chime in.
God knows.
Anyway.
Like sword fighting is the worst in these movies. Like we talked about Highlander.
That's where it was.
Shout out
to
what
we talked about. Yeah.
Shout out to our old Highlander episode. That's a good one. I enjoyed talking about that. But like it's like that. The sword fighting, it's not sword fighting. It's just 2 guys.
It's like children
going their swords backwards and forwards. Yeah, like there's no choreography to it. There's no finesse. This is the same in terms of like the hand-to-hand stuff. And it just culminates in him eventually getting a gun and he just shoots people in the head for the whole movie.
Yeah, and with that weird freaking look in his eye.
Yeah, but it's interesting when he gets back to Mars and he finally meets up with the girl from his original dream at the beginning of the movie, Melina, finds out she's part of this resistance. And I actually really thought when I was watching this, because he's obviously called Quaid.
And this is kind of, are you getting into pacing? Like this is like midway through, if not more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just sort of going through the plot a little bit, but I think like he's obviously called Quaid, and the leader of the resistance was called Quato. I honestly thought for ages it was going to be a case of he was Quato and he had just misremembered, and they'd take him back to the resistance layer, and they would tell him and he'd go, oh my God.
And they'd be like, you're the guy.
Yeah.
That'd be funny, actually.
That would have been a good twist, I thought. Like
Quato and
they
Quaid.
take him through to meet this dude, but it's like, no. You're saying your name wrong.
You're the dude, yeah.
Yeah. I thought that'd have been a great twist.
Better than the ones I think we got, to be honest.
I like the twists in this.
I think you like this movie, and I give you all the power in the world, but there were so many things that were just like kind of just poorly done. I thought like this whole mutant storyline just gets thrown in like randomly, and it's like super out of place and weird. And then they have like special powers to like be mind readers. Like what? Like because they don't get enough oxygen? Like, by the way, like I don't think that's what happens. I think you just die. I don't think you turn into a mutant.
You
like
literally get brain damage.
There's just like some weird, like you could have like changed the weird sci-fi parts to be more like halfway believable.
Sure.
You know, that kind of took me out.
I feel like that's part of the world building. Let's talk about world building then, because like, and the cinematography, I tend to route them together. Probably shouldn't, but I do. The world building of the Mars side of things when he gets back there, I actually really, I mean, like, I get it. There's nonsense, but you take a step out of it. You've got to...
Real quick. Remember when he just like pretends apparently to be this woman? Which, by the way, like what? Like all of a sudden he's a woman. That was like no preface, right?
It was almost like it was like
a
big,
weird
like,
robotic prosthetic thing. And it's like, what was the point of you dressing up as this woman if right when you're gonna get in subtly you
It just goes
unveil
to shit.
yourself.
We started to twitch, didn't it?
Yeah,
Like the suit thing started to fail.
Anyway.
But then the head was a bomb. Like what?
That's my point. There's like so 80s, like these things like that was never a part of the
They
plan.
just chucking
Hopefully,
shit in.
yeah. Like why did like somebody just like, no, but her head needs to be a bomb. But he's like no, he was trying to use that to get in. Why would he want to blow up? That would blow his cover. Like that kind of stuff I can't really get beyond.
I kind of liked. I'm going to use the word juxtaposition. I kind of liked that because they did juxtapose that side of things, which was like the big bombastic sort of 80s nonsense with some slightly more subtle spy stuff. So like the part when he gets a communication from someone who's one of his old pals who he used to work with on Mars. I'm putting quotation marks around all this. And he gives him a suitcase, a big briefcase suitcase thing, and he takes it to this like warehouse in the middle of nowhere, and he finds out he's got a tracker up his nose. And but it's like
graphic.
Without focusing too much on the awful pulling the tracker out. Like I kind of liked that side of the movie where it was slower and it would like the pace came right down.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it was more of like a spy.
I would have liked that to be a slower build, almost like more like Moon Knight, the first episode, where you're where he's like kind of discovering all this fucked up, like who's this lady calling, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it's like him debating with himself more, where as opposed to just being like right away, like it was like kind of he went in and it was like right away.
Yeah,
like I don't think you need to change that much. You just make it more subtle of a build up. But I did like that stuff a lot more than the end. I wrote like from a pacing perspective, I really liked the first half. I was into it. And then kind of pretty much as soon as he took off that like prosthetic female head and it blew up, I was like, ooh, this is turning bad for the worst.
Well, I wrote down that I thought like the tension tend to build to satisfying conclusions. Like the points where you were building towards, like that bit I mentioned where he was finding out about himself, who he was supposed to be, and how he got away from them by pulling out his tracker and sneaking, stuff like that. Like it was all kind of satisfying.
No,
like,
that was cool. Yeah.
Even the bits where you were a bit confused, but also it's a really interesting film to really focus on as it's happening, because there are things within it that apparently
I was going to
essentially shape the dream.
So you were saying that there's some little knicknacks that they leave around.
From,
So I'm curious if like I just missed those, wasn't paying attention enough, didn't care, whatever it may be. Do you have some off the cuff?
Perfect example. The tracker in his nose, right? So there's a scene early on when he is in said dream. So we're hypothesizing that he's in a dream from that moment onwards we mentioned before.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. In that moment, he goes into the subway station and they walk through what is like essentially an X-ray. So they see all the bones of everyone. And
no tracker.
Huh?
No tracker.
And there isn't a tracker in him, which you would see because it's made of metal at that point. But then when he finds out that they've bugged him, all of a sudden this metal tracker is in his nose. So it's almost a case of things that he's learning are affecting his dreams.
His psychosis, that's interesting.
As we go on, I'll talk about a few of the other bits, the other more interesting sections, maybe from slightly close to the beginning of the film, but like I started to talk about it. What do you think about the world building and cinematography, like Mars, for example?
I thought that actually like the Mars and like the vistas, like that was surprisingly not that bad.
Oh yeah.
I didn't mind the way it looked and like the vibe, and I guess it almost was like this kind of looks like just a big mine site, right? If it was a city.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't mind
kind of steampunky.
Yeah, I didn't mind any of that. I actually quite liked it. It had like, but what I didn't really like was like again, apparently a lack of air makes you a mute and not a dead person. Yeah. Like that part of the world building just kind of got thrown in, and I was a little bit like, you didn't need to do it that way.
I really liked that they had some like minor details. Like I'm thinking back to like, you remember in The Fifth Element, he was trying to cut down on smoking, so he only had 2/3 cigarettes like in the machine. Like for example, with this, when they were on Earth, there were only advertisements for Coca-Cola, but on Mars there was only Pepsi. So it's like this weird. It's this like weird
Hilton
separate...
and the Ritz.
Exactly.
Did it kind of felt like this was the most product placed movie?
There was a lot of product placement, from what I could tell.
Yeah.
But I really like the things like it introduced self-driving cars to some extent. Like that's a big part of this movie. Like he drives around in cabs at points that are self-driving. You mentioned CGI before. Like what do you think?
Oh, there was terrible. And the prosthetics weren't like bad, but they were just over the top. It was kind of very, very like Thing-esque, and it kind of felt a bit out of place sometimes.
Really, I really liked it.
I like prosthetics in general, but I just kind of felt like this was like a different movie when it got into those moments.
Speaking of that scene with the X-rays,
three-titted baby,
yeah, the chick. Well, speaking of that scene with the X-ray,
yeah,
that was one of the first ever major Hollywood blockbuster moments to use CGI. So it was like a turning point. Yeah, really interesting in action, which I find really interesting. And it was one of the last major Hollywood blockbusters to use large-scale use of miniatures. So, like, that's something I really love. Like, I love miniatures. Like, you watch, like,
That's what the Mars was, surely.
Yeah, a lot of Mars was that. And that's stuff that I think movies severely lack these days. Like, you look at a Chris Nolan movie where he uses them very sparingly. And not necessarily miniatures. He uses, like, scaled-down models of stuff. Like, in The Batman, for example, the bit where they flip the truck, that's a scaled-down model, not a miniature. But I think that sense of realism is lacking in a lot of movies these days.
I agree, man. I was loving Dark Crystal, which is just the entire thing is that. So you have to get me out. Like I don't mind that. It was I agree. There was some really cool stuff that like you remember like why these movies feel different. And they do. It has that vibe about it. It doesn't have the same plot, I think, backing it. Besides a couple cool parts that like they didn't, I think, explore enough. Yeah, okay. But like there were really, really cool ideas. It was a kind of Inception before Inception.
Like what kind of ideas? What do you
like? Just that one sequence where he confronts the doctor confronts him as a way to like stop him from keeping on his spy thing in Mars. And he's like, "Hey, this is a psychosis." Like that should have been like a more central theme to the whole movie.
Psychosis.
Like just the idea that like, is this real or is it not? It kind of felt like they touched on it twice.
I feel
and then
like
they got distracted by these like mutant storylines that were really boring and nobody cared about. It was all thrown in 20 minutes. Like,
I think it was just so subtly done. Like beat by beat of this movie follows almost to the letter. Firstly, what the salesman was selling him in the first place about the spy vacation.
Yes,
and then next, a bunch of stuff from what the scientists are talking about when he's about to go into his vacation. All that stuff is fitted into it. And then it's almost like his brain trying to make sense of the stuff he's heard and seen in the last few minutes and building it into this dreamscape. And I really love that.
The only part that's like kind of odd is like, how does he have the dream before he goes in there?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm intrigued by. Like, is this an old flame? Is it like, the other question, has he done it before? Has he been to Total Recall before and can't remember it? Like, is this his thing? Is he doing this all the time? But yeah, that was one I was a bit like, or is that, I mean, it's obviously a dream and he's obviously projecting the girl, whatever, Melania? That's Trump's daughter.
Tim Tucker.
Melina. Yeah, he's obviously projecting that Melina into the character that he's seeing in the dream. And I think that's really interesting that as he's drifting off, like they're building the prototype woman for him to have to fall for in the dream.
Yeah.
And he starts to imagine her face onto it. So like he's already seeing like his imagination's taking over. And I really like that. Should we talk a bit about sort of like the bigger like twists to it then?
I'm trying to remember what they are.
Well, I mean like the story of it outside of what we're talking about is that it turns out Arnie was a double agent all along, and he tricked himself. The spy part of the story. He tricked himself into infiltrating the bad guy's headquarters. For the bad guy, infiltrating the Resistance's headquarters so they could take out the Resistance.
Yeah,
right?
Basically, he's been misleading himself in the future. Has been misleading him the whole time to get the outcome that his self in the future wants for. He's a double agent,
but he rejects his previous life and wants to be Doug Quaid.
He does,
which is
interesting.
Baffling.
Casablanca, right? Like, how do you make decisions with like this guy's? I don't know. It's that could have been a cool thing to explore too. I think a bit more.
I very much.
Like if this truly is the other guy, like what makes him now? Like what changed? Was it the people in his life? Like in
Melina, obviously, bro.
Yeah. So, like nurture versus nature, that kind of thing.
Well, we're going to come to that in a moment. And obviously they find an alien-built oxygen generator on Mars. He manages to turn it on.
This part is just absurd. Like, this is where I was like,
But this is where I'm like, this is clearly a dream because, that would never happen. But this is, like, quite a... Like, I've written this way. Like, I think it's, like, a fabulously meta movie in that like I say, it leaves you with more questions than answers. You know, is everything post-recall a dream? That's one. There's a great bit where in his previous dream, he saw blue sky on Mars. And that's the last thing he hears before he goes in, which is how the dream ends.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the scientists, it's like a blink and you miss it line, or I don't know how you blink with your ears, blink and you miss it kind of line. And he says, oh, blue sky on Mars. That's not one I've seen before, but that's how
I remember that.
the movie ends.
Yeah.
And it's like, is his brain interpreting what he's just been hearing and seeing? And sort of,
I think this is like a less sophisticated version of Inception.
Yeah.
Like, I can appreciate what it's doing. I guess sometimes its execution doesn't match its like attempts at sophistication.
For sure.
Like, and it's hard for me to like mar those two things. Right?
Yeah, right. So, all right then.
Yeah.
That was our kind of rambling overview. Do you want to give me a little bit of tones and/or themes?
Well, I think it's interesting. Like, there's definitely like they could have explored the nature versus nurture thing a bit. I don't think they really did. I think that's a missed opportunity, but they hint at it. You know, I also I guess like what there's just a motif of like reality and like reality versus dream and you know dream states and how they influence our view on reality. But I actually thought this is like more of a satire. Like you look at his other movies, right? RoboCop's a satire on capitalism.
This almost is as well.
Yes, to a degree, for sure. I mean, it's set in a similar vein, right? It's not as like poignant on that, but Starship Troopers is kind of like a satire on patriotism, and the military-industrial complex. This almost to me feels like a satire on like Hollywood itself, like where you take this guy at the peak of his stardom, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you turn him into this like brain dead kind of like humiliated, just getting his ass kicked by Sharon Stone. Yeah. Like that'd be quite fun. Like, yeah, I'm not denying it. I'm sure he enjoyed it to a degree, but point being, like, it almost felt like a satire, like of humiliating him to a degree.
Have I got
a movie
for you? Have you ever seen the movie Last Action Hero?
No.
It's exactly what you're describing. It is literally a kid who goes to a cinema who falls through the screen, and Arnie is his favorite hero on screen. It's all the tropes of an action movie. Like he's lighting a stick of dynamite with his cigar and throwing it in the car next to him with bad guys, and it's blowing up. But then they bust into the real world. Like they come back through, and he's got to like learn that he isn't invincible. And it's really fun. And like there's twists to it. For example, like they go into like a movie store and there's like a Terminator poster, but it's actually Sly Stallone's head on the Terminator poster because it couldn't be Arnold, right? Because it's a movie star. So like, yeah, it's real fun.
See, that to me sounds like something I'd be interested in because it's like its aims are more base. It's not
more
as
of
like
a kids movie.
It's not this high flying concept movie.
Well, I just put, does who you were really matter, or is it your actions now that define you? That's the kind of things I took away from this movie.
Yeah.
Past versus present, nature versus
like
nurture.
what is the extent of redemption, right? Like how far can it really go? If he was this guy, like, does it matter what he does? I guess. Well, he saves Mars, he terraforms it.
Did he redeem himself?
That's definitely something.
So then, give me your 3 best and 3 worst about this movie.
I think Sharon Stone
is best,
just in general. Whether she's kicking balls or
he gets hit in the nuts all the time.
Or doing like tennis like in a jazzercise suit, which
I still think that's a good idea. I think that's how we can start a business with this DL.
Yeah, I think people would dig it, man. I sure did.
You get the actual pros to do like a hologram style tape of themselves training people how to serve.
Yeah, people
would pay good money for that.
I think
skipping straight on, do you?
Yes, yada yada yada. I think just the whole Inception before Inception concept, like they played around with that. I wish they would have done more with it, but I did like it. And then I guess like the third best, like I don't really have one. I would say just the general feel of like the backgrounds of Mars and like the setting, like that was
the worlds they built.
There was there was cool parts to that. How about you?
Well, I definitely said the worlds they built. Like it felt lived in. I liked that it had a backstory to it. It wasn't just like Mars. You just appear on Mars and everything's brand new. Like it's grimy. There's like sex dungeons there and stuff, and like sex shops for like the bored workers of this minor colony. Like I liked
triple-titted women.
Yeah,
like.
All that stuff's really fleshed out. I felt like the twists were kind of earned, like way more so than most 80s, 90s movies. Like most 80s, 90s movies, like all of a sudden, this happens, and you're like, the good guy's bad, or the bad guy's good, and you're like, why?
Yeah,
that wasn't signposted. Whereas in this, it's like
there were
you get
some
the
hints.
subtle build up of like the bit where it's on the screen. I actually turned to my partner, and the bit where we talked about before, where he's in the warehouse and he was telling himself how to take out the tracking chip. I turned to my partner and I genuinely said, I bet he's a double agent. Like, honest to God. And she was like, have you seen this before? I was like, no, because it was so well played in the fact that he was so greasy and his hair was different. And I was
he just felt like a sleazeball in those videos. Right?
Exactly. So like, I felt like they felt very earned.
And which is actually a good point to art. Like, he did play kind of two very different characters when you think about that.
So you've come full 180 on that.
Not 180. I'll give him I will say that he did some acting.
You're saying that my arguments were very compelling is what you're trying to say.
I also think that he struggled through English.
Yeah, that's also
there were
true.
some tough parts for me.
The final part was, the final positive for me was that I genuinely love that sort of 80s animatronics sort of thing, style stuff going on in this. And like, some of it was almost like stop motion animation, and I bloody loved it. What are your worsts?
I just thought the villains were just like very, very like. I actually didn't mind the second baddie, like the one that was like the not the bad baddie, like not the boss, but the
Richter.
boss. Yeah, I didn't mind him.
Michael Ironside,
because he was kind of like this comedic element too. I'm sure he didn't like
the bit where he gets
banging,
his arms chopped off.
Yeah, like I didn't mind him as much, but the main bad guy, I was like, this guy's kind of boring
For sure.
And I would say just like certain lines with Arnold, like his English was tough for me. Like he was struggling through his accent, and I was like, oh God, like nothing wrong with it, but it's just a bit cheesy. And I guess the third bad would be just like the whole mutant.
You really didn't like that.
That crammed in storyline where he's like meeting this mutant that's in the guy's stomach. That's like
Quato.
Quato. That's like the psychic mutant that like the whole concept that mutants are created because they don't have enough oxygen was just like so lazy.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, it was very lazy.
It was weird, and it didn't. I mean, it fit the tone of the movie, but it didn't make. There could have been some other
reason. Like, why don't you just say
give it any other reason?
Like they're creating this troninium or whatever, and it's leaking into the water supply. Like that's easier. That makes more sense.
Why not? Right, yeah. All right, mine were the generic bad guy trope. I was like, like every bad guy was exactly carbon copies, just unnecessary. They were bad because they were bad.
Yeah,
I felt like. Yeah, I said this in the action scenes. Like, I felt like Arnie would have taken out all those goons. There's a bit when he's learning that he thinks he used to be a spy but can't remember, and he gets cornered by about 5 dudes who are about a third of his height. They're all like overweight, and like they can barely like lift their arms without breaking a sweat.
Yeah,
and I'm like, he would literally crush your head. So I was a bit like, oh, why didn't he at least just run away? They definitely couldn't chase him.
Well, and like they're not supposed to be killing him. Like that was like anyway. That was also a part where I was like, are they trying to kill him? Or are they
flipped
not?
That halfway
I'm
through.
I'm kind of confused.
Yeah. and there were some parts of the story that confused themselves. I think because it was trying to build this mystique of without, like you say, doing it particularly well, like mystique of almost like an Inception dream scenario. There were bits that didn't quite add up, but I mean they yada that by saying that that his dream was evolving as he was learning stuff.
Yes.
I would say. Well, the final question for this then is this movie better or worse than Aquaman 2018? Do you want to preface our rating system?
So sometimes we skip this. Sorry, guys. We don't have a thumbs up. We don't have a thumbs down on the podcast assemble. We
don't have a star
better
system.
Or worse. There's no 5 stars. There's no out of 100%. It's better or worse than Aquaman. It's binary.
We don't have how many tits.
Yeah,
is this good?
3 tits, 4 tits.
3 is the best. 1.
2, 1. It is binary. It's better or worse than Aquaman. It's yes or no.
Yes, it very much is. Is it better or worse than Aquaman 2018?
I think it's worse.
The most average movie of all time. You think it's worse?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to watch this again. I'd watch Aquaman.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, man, it's just not for me.
That's
like,
fair.
I like certain 80s movies. This one was like I want them to be full one way or the other. This one was like caught between 2 vibes. Like it wanted to be something more than it was, and then it was also just that thing. You're
saying it wasn't heady enough for you.
Saying it wasn't like its headiness didn't match its execution in acting and casting and plot. It was like only.
I wonder if that's because of the time it was made in. So, for example, like acting just wasn't as good then. Like you get 1 or 2 actors who massively stand out. Like you're probably your De Niro's. like is an incredible actor. But most actors like of the time, all they did was they were either talking quiet like we are now, or really shouting at the screen. Like that's good acting in like the 80s and 90s.
I get where you're coming from, but I think like even like Back to the Future is better than this.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of shouting in that. But anyway.
Yeah, that's my point. Like but it was like it was more tonally consistent.
Okay. All right. Yeah. From my perspective, I think this is better than Aquaman 2018. I
can understand where you're coming from. Just from a
enjoyment perspective.
Just from like it is very like it's not as like I'm sure it takes more risks.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Do you want a bit of True or False trivia? I've brought it back this week. True or False trivia. We're back, baby.
Why not?
After a little break last week. All right. True or False trivia. True or false? When Ronald Schwarzenegger and Dan Bannon first started working on the screenplay for this movie back in 1970, they realized that the movie would probably be way too expensive and difficult to make. So they delayed working on it and moved on to other projects. However, later on, they came back to this and the script became Predator.
What, the script that they originally...
Sorry, I don't understand.
They continued to work on the script and evolved it, and in the end, it became the Predator script.
Oh, okay. Predator to this, I just don't understand. I think it's actually true, but I'm going to say false.
It's actually false. So they delayed working on the story and instead worked on an idea that Bannon had with a space monster terrorizing a spaceship crew, which eventually became Alien.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's Alien, not Predator.
Well, like you could see how there's a little nod to aliens in this, very briefly.
It's true. Yeah. All right. True or false? Arnold Schwarzenegger was originally going to play the title role in RoboCop, but had problems with the costume, causing producers to drop the idea. Is this true or false?
That feels true.
It is true. Yeah. After Schwarzenegger saw RoboCop, he said that he loved the movie and wanted to work so badly with Paul Verhoeven. Probably not going to say his name right ever. So when Verhoeven heard about the Total Recall script, they decided to work on that together.
Nice.
That's a nice ending to that story, isn't it?
It is.
You don't often get them in cinema these days. True or false? Originally, Patrick Swayze was signed to play Quaid. When the movie began production in Australia, with Bruce Beresford as director, but they realized very early on that he wasn't right for the part.
That kind of conflicts with what we just heard, so I'm going to say false.
No, it's true.
Okay.
And then this is with a different production company, and they're in pre-production, and when that company eventually went bankrupt, everything changed up, and Arnold Schwarzenegger heard about the role and wanted to move forward.
Interesting.
So you're getting better at these. Still only 2 out of 3. Soon you're going to get there.
Sorry, mate.
One day soon.
My best.
Well, thank you all for sticking with it. We really do appreciate it. That was our rambling, less rambling. I think it was kind of rambling overview.
I mean, it's an old movie.
It is an old movie. It's a good one, though.
Going through it, yeah. Do you have any correspondence this week, Thomas?
We sure do.
Of course we do. Always do.
Thank you, everyone who sent us news this week. We got a bunch of people sending us the Thor: Love and Thunder trailer. Mm-hmm. What did I call it? Thor: Love and Trailer?
Trailer. Thor trailer loving. That's what we love to hear.
I'm not sure that one works. But social media guy Lockie put on this week on Instagram at Podcast Assemble, hit us up on there about the fact that they're moving ahead with the Luther movie. Now, we had Drop Dead Podcast reach out saying that they've been hanging out for the Luther movie for years. And they
Same actor?
Still Idris Elba.
Yeah.
And they loved the whole Luther Alice banter, which is very interesting. How do you feel about this coming back as a movie?
Fine with it.
Yeah?
I think
Don't think it needs a long-form storytelling?
I mean, I'm sure I think that this kind of show can translate to a movie quite well.
Sure.
Just doesn't need to be... I just wonder why they picked a movie. That's the one thing I always wonder. I'm like, why? When you know you can do a show, why do a movie? And I guess maybe it's just because everyone's too expensive and it's too hard. And he is pretty big now, maybe. I don't know.
Well, Dead Drop Podcast, I said that wrong before. Dead Drop Podcast did also say the same thing. And they are going back to relive it. So they're starting with season 1, episode 1.
I don't think I ever finished it. I got like pretty through like season 2. How many are there?
I think there's 4 or 5. Yeah. They did like 2 seasons at the very end, which were much shorter, like only 3 episodes. So they did... essentially, they were trying to work around Idris Elba's hectic schedule. So they did just a couple. And they were like almost like Christmas special type things. Yeah. So I'm excited to see that. I love that show. It's one of my absolute favorite BBC TV shows. Highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen Luther go and see it. We had a piece of news sent over by friend of the show, Steve. Steve is essentially our gaming correspondent. I don't know if you've noticed, but he keeps us up to date.
Call him in.
He sent over this week, there was a brand new trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4.
I heard about this. Yeah, actually. I should have brought it up in news, but Steve, you got me covered.
Did you see it?
I didn't because I haven't played 3, and I haven't
played any of them.
Even though I can't understand the storyline for the life of me.
Great point.
I still didn't want to be spoiled.
Look, I asked Steve. I said, "Look, hey, what's the go? Like, I hear it's got a really complex story. Have you played it?" He said he's played it. He says the games are crazy and they have to fill up all the gaps in the storyline with shitty like games that are on different platforms. Like some are on the PSP.
It's a bit frustrating. It's kind of like Halo in that way. Like every other multimedia thing is where the story goes. Yeah.
Apparently, Kingdom Hearts fans love that though. So I've seen the trailer. It looks really updated. The graphics look sick. They look so interesting. They've got this huge monster in it. The dude who's like a kid in the original one, he's
Sora.
Grown up a bit. My only problem with this game is like I can't imagine like doing cool shit and then like Goofy's like next to you.
Mate, it's pretty. The combat's fun and it pulls you back to like. I always liked it because it's like nostalgic a bit. But I'll be real. I didn't get through the last one mainly because I got bored.
Right.
But the combat was fun. Yeah, the combat is. It's a well made. They're well made games.
They are well made games. Yeah. I'll give you that. And all right, final bit of news this week is from a friend of the show, Mazeman, who is a good friend of yours. And she sent us a meme.
Did she really?
We're back with memes, guys. It is back. Please send us
always send us memes.
Any and all memes. Now this, I'm pretty sure it's a TikTok and it's pretty fun. And you will have seen it before.
Because she will have sent it to.
Because she will send you. What it is it's essentially a bunch of guys who are dressed up as the Avengers, all reverse jumping into a lake, doing Avengers poses.
Yeah.
And then you see the movie, you see it coming backwards, and it looks like they're all doing like power stances and like superhero landings.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and we really do appreciate it, friend of the show.
It is actually very well done. Actually, I hadn't seen this.
Haven't you?
No. I'd seen like if someone else do something like this.
I've seen a similar one,
yeah.
Well, thank you.
Very impressive. Sorry, I'm still watching this.
No. Thank you, as I say, friend of the show, Mazeman. DL, where can they find us?
Thank you, Mason, for sending. You can always send us memes, and you can find us at the Podcast Assemble or Podcast Assemble on Instagram and thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. While you're at it, sending memes. Might as well give us a review. Share us with your friends if you.
Why not?
If you'd like, we always appreciate that. If you give us a review, I'll promise you this. I'll read it. Right, as long as it's not vulgar.
If you know how to find it.
Yeah. Come on, bud. I know how to find reviews. It's very simple. I am from Gen. What are we? Gen. We're millennials.
What are we?
We grew up basically with iPhones. I can find the review.
Basically
page.
In my hand.
And yeah, we'll read it aloud. Thanks again, Lockie, our social media guy. Thank you, Tommy, for leading the way. And until next time, guys.
Thank you, DL.
Yeah. Tally ho.
Tally ho.
Thanks again for listening to Science Fiction Fanatic by Indie Drop-In Network. If you would like to nominate a podcast for feature, just send me a tweet at Indie Drop-In. Indie Drop-In Network has many other shows that you might enjoy. You can check them out at indiedropin.com. All right, see you next time.